Town Council, Jeff Blake. Discussion regarding the failure of the Article 8 for mitigation, engineering, and design. Attorney Blake, greetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having me out here today. So I understand that you've asked me to come out and kind of outline the ramifications of a vote at town meeting to not approve an appropriation that included monies for the continuing remediation of PFAS down on the Eagle Drive area. As I know the facts, and as everybody can probably remember, it's been a while. The DEP issued an emergency response action order to the town and told them that ordered us to remediate PFAS contamination down at Eagle Drive, which included wells and required us to either install what are known as point of entry systems to treat the PFAS, or in some instances, depending upon the level of contamination, to provide water. Shortly after we were issued the emergency response order, another property owner in the area, Gentex, was also found as a responsible party, and DEP ordered them, together with us, to come to some type of cost-sharing agreement. We negotiated a cost-sharing agreement and signed it. This board signed it, and it's binding on the town. As you probably know, DEP, while they typically will work with municipalities, and we had the water people out here from DEP, and I think that they had indicated to us that they're willing to work with us and help us wherever they can. But in order to remediate is not discretionary. We have to do it. And in order for us to do it, we have to pay for it. So we're in the unenviable position of now not having the money to do it. We have a contribution agreement with Gentex that, while it doesn't necessarily result in us spending money, what we do is we spend money on remediation of like half, and it's not exactly half, and Gentex spends it on half. At some point, if we renege on our obligation, we're unable to pay, I think a couple of things can happen. DEP can come in and order us to pay. We don't have the money, they can start fining us. DEP has a very large hammer, $25,000 a day hammer. They can ultimately bring us to court, get a judgment against us for monies that they believe that we would owe. As a result of that, there is a statutory provision under its Chapter 44, Section 31, which allows a municipality to pay without appropriation by town meeting judgments, payments ordered by an administrative agency. So if that happened, we would go through the whole court process. Likely there would be fines. You would pay me, somebody from my firm, you would pay for legal representation, and you would ultimately end up having to pay what you could have just paid voluntarily. And then, rather than the people being able to come to town meeting and vote on it, it would just go on the tax rate. There's no approval of the appropriation. That might take care of DEP. We would also have Weston and Sampson and Safewell. Weston and Sampson is our engineer who's undertaking a lot of the required testing and remediation throughout the remediating area. Weston and Sampson would have to get paid. Likely scenario would be the same thing if Weston and Sampson would continue to work for us. But what they would do is they would run up a certain bill, they would turn around, they would sue us, you would have to defend that action, and they would ultimately get a judgment against us, and then it would be paid through, again, 44 Section 31. So unlikely that there would be attorney fees awarded in that action, but it's a lot of, it would be legal fees for my firm or any other law firm that might defend you. And then Safewell, is the same thing. What Safewell are the people who install the POET systems and maintain the POET systems. So again, provided they would continue to work for us, knowing that we don't have any money and that ultimately they would have to sue us to get our money, it would be the same thing. So what we would end up doing is it's not a matter of if we can pay and if the town meeting can say, well, sorry, we're not going to pay. It's when we're going to pay and frankly, how much. Because there will be a lot of other added costs if we're unable to find an appropriation and unable to pay these without having to go to court. And just so that you know, this isn't a continuing obligation. This isn't a one-time, you didn't pay me $100K, I sue you, now I've got a judgment and you pay and then we're all done. This will be a continuing obligation, and to the extent that these folks will continue to work for us, I mean, I can envision every 6 months, every year, they would sue us to get this. Now, what may end up happening is you may end up going to town meeting, your annual town meeting, and getting the appropriation, and maybe at that point, we would only have been sued once or twice to get the money. But this is where it works, and this is how it works. And again, DEP has a very large hammer. I don't think they like to use fines, but in a situation where they have a direct order out there, we all know PFAS are all over the news. This is deer season now, and there are towns in New England that are telling you don't eat deer meat because of the PFAS in it. It's a big deal, and they're going to take whatever action, I assume, that they have to get us into compliance.
Thank you for that update.
I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out a better way.
That's why we did the retirements first, get the good stuff out of the way. No, it's sobering. I mean, I sat in on phone calls in the past, and I don't think the people at the town meeting, it kind of devolved into, I don't know what it devolved into. I don't think they got the full scope of the impact on the town, but anybody have any questions for council? Mr. Shanes?
No, not right now.
Mr. Landry?
Mr. Chairman, ultimately, this could end up costing us more than what we were asking because of the actions that were taken at this time, because even if we are taken to court once or twice, paying all the fees and everything, then we still get what was owed and continue going forward. Wow.
I'm good.
Nope.
Mr. Johnson?
Nothing at this time.
Administrator?
So Mr. Chairman, I asked Jeff to come in because we're going to talk to him in executive session to see what our options are, and obviously a conversation that involves other entities beyond the town, but I wanted to have this public conversation with Jeff here to the extent that we could, so people would understand what we're now going to be facing in about 25 minutes in executive session and going forward. We've gone to great lengths to try to manage the amount of money we're spending on this. We've kept a close rein on the agreement with Gentex. We're working actively every week with DEP in order to find other sources of funding to get to the ultimate solution, which we've been talking about for several years now, which is a water line down Eagle Drive.